Hello and welcome to Discovering Grays Lake, unveiling the stories and people that make our town so unique. I'm your host, David Wool, and I'm thrilled to bring you this new podcast that explores fascinating stories and experiences of local business owners and community leaders, right here where we call home. Grays Lake Rehabilitation Center is a community-based private practice physical therapy provider. Do you know they have 13 clinical providers with various levels of specialties, including orthopedics, sports, neurology, vestibular, geriatrics, pelvic floor, and aquatic? What? Did I just say they have a pool? Well, they do, and it's the largest indoor warm water pool in Lake County, featuring 2 underwater treadmills and swim currents. And recently added clinical treatment specialties, in layman's terms, shockwave. They have both radial and focus units that are the newest tool in regenerative medicine, available to everyone. They pride themselves on the most current and up-to-date specialized care to keep you moving. If you're looking for physical therapy, make sure to see our friends at Grays Lake Rehabilitation. Wait. Grays Lake has a record store? Are you ready to get into the groove? Well, I've got the perfect place for you with new and used vinyl, CDs, tapes, and more. At Andy's Records, they're not just about the hits. They're about the classics, the B-sides, the hidden gems, the vinyl vibes that make your heart skip a beat. For the record, Andy's is not your average music shop. It's a place where melodies meet memories. Andy's Records, because life sounds better with a little spin. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Discovering Grays Lake. We are recording here at Agora, thanks to Luke. We're right on the corner of Center Street and Atkinson, so if anybody's looking for a co-working space, wonderful place if you just need to get your office out of the home for a day or for a month, or you want a home forever. Luke would be glad to have you over here. So thank you, Grays Lake, for listening. I am here today with Heidi Houchen. Houchen? Is that correct?
Houchen, very
Houchen.
close.
Oh my gosh.
So good. No.
See, it only took me 3 seconds.
It's usually my maiden name that people mess up on.
Okay, but your married name is?
Houchen. And then my maiden name, which I use for acting, is Johanningmeier.
Johanningmeier.
Yeah, so actually, it's Heidi, Linda, Eulene, Johanningmeier, Houchen. Okay, I have 4 older brothers.
So I'm going to go with Heidi.
My parents were so excited when they finally had a girl.
Yeah.
That they used every name. No, that's a joke.
They just keep stacking
They just
them.
had been stacking up names. No.
that is awesome. Okay, so
you can just call me Heidi.
We'll just go with Heidi. So I was introduced to you. I first found out about you actually was getting my haircut from Myra.
Who we both love.
Exactly.
Love.
Shout out to Myra if you need to get your haircut. A good American barber.
Yeah, on Center Street.
Yeah, and if you haven't listened to her episode, go back and listen because she's really a cool girl.
She is awesome.
For sure, and doing some wonderful things. So there was this random dude that was there.
Oh my
he
God.
may or may not have been drinking beer.
Yep.
Yeah, so of course.
And he looks a little grizzly.
He is a little grizzly.
He's a little grizzly.
Yeah.
He's definitely, we're yin and yang. And he's my partner and husband, Jason, who just self-promoted for the other half of him.
Right, exactly. So me and him had fun, and I did not drink that day, but he brought in and he helped refill the fridge, and we was just hanging out, having fun.
Yeah.
But he's a charismatic dude, though.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah,
that's sweet. He is. It's so funny because when people meet us together, yeah. He's an artist as well, but he's a wood burner. So he's kind of that broody, emo, down in the basement. Right now he's listening to Coulter Wild. It's
I have no idea.
Oh my God. He is like a legitimate cowboy. And for his birthday I got him vinyls. Coulter Wild, I believe.
Wow, so that's what he's listening to right now.
Vinyl and wood burning right now.
Good man.
Yeah.
He's living the dream.
I love the smell of smoke. Good thing I married a fireman. He's also a fireman.
Gotcha. And you get the honor to be here other than staying at home
I know.
Smelling smoke. So,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
So thank you, first of all, for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
So you are an actress.
Yes.
Okay. So let's go back before we talk about shows and things like that. So give everybody a little backstory about where you grew up.
Yeah,
stuff like that.
Sure. I actually, a lot of people in the Midwest come to Chicago and then they try LA. I did the opposite. I grew up in a tiny town in Iowa called Nashua, Iowa. We're famous for the Little Brown Church in the Vale. 1,700 people.
Wow. Big town.
Big town. My mom was the superintendent of all schools, and then my father was a dairy farmer. So I milked cows every day of my life growing up.
Really?
I always say, and it feels very special. It's so funny. I called my daddy last night, and we grew up farming the fields with horses. So draft horses.
Wow.
And I think, for having a small farm, which kind of doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately, I feel like I am one of the last small farm American kids. My brothers didn't do sports because they were needed on the farm.
Right, they're working.
We didn't do sports in the summer because we were in the field all summer. After school, we milked the cows. On the weekends, so the farm was our priority. And, it was a neat way to grow up for sure. I still am utterly obsessed with animals.
You said utterly.
Utterly.
Right.
I was actually, I was even the dairy princess, and that was like a big deal.
Right.
Which now, my agents joke me about.
So that'll be the name of this episode.
Oh my God.
The Dairy Princess.
The Dairy Princess.
Yes.
But I really loved it. It was a neat way to grow up, and at the same hand, I could not wait to get out. And so as soon as I had the chance, actually mid-college, I went to Los Angeles, and I was just supposed to go for the summer, and I ended up booking a pretty big campaign for 1-800-Dentists.
Really?
And I was their spokesperson. And
so you went to LA to be an actress?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did your family think you were crazy?
They did, and they were terrified. And now having children, I get it. Right. I remember my mom saying when I told her, she said, if you don't have a job, you're not going. And I said, Mom, I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you.
I bet that was a hard day.
That was a hard day. But she drove me out, and we always joke. The car that I drove out the first day we were in Los Angeles should have been a sign. Probably was a sign. I just ignored it. We pull out of this diner, and my muffler falls off in the middle of the street, and I look at my mom, and I go, we're not going back for it. And we just kept driving. And
that's the first day in Los Angeles?
That was the first day in Los Angeles.
Nice.
And I would have been 18 turning 19. I was young. I'd never been west of Colorado. I didn't know anybody.
It sounds like this is a TV show or a movie in itself.
Yeah, it was crazy. I actually moved in with an unstable individual who ended up locking me out of the house because they thought that their dog liked me more than them. And so being locked out of the house, I went to this church, and there was a woman there, Jane, and she said, what's going on? What's wrong? I remember a hymnal was playing, And I said, oh, nothing. And something in me said, tell her. And I said, I have to find a place to live. I don't have a place to live. I didn't have any money. I mean, I'd already put my deposit down for this one house. And she didn't miss a beat. And she said, you can move in with me.
A woman that you just met?
A woman, yeah. Older woman. And she took me in rent-free. She just let me live with her.
What a blessing.
It was insane. I owe so much to her. She passed away about 2 years ago, but that's just the sort of person she was.
That's
she never
unbelievable.
She never asked anything from the whole experience.
Wow. So you have one bad thing happen as you're pulling into LA.
And followed up, yeah.
And then just
the
random act of kindness of...
Yeah, and there was another time that I thought I was going to leave LA, actually. I just was kind of done. It was hard to find an agency. I always felt like the agency I have now is Stewart Talent in Chicago, and I could not have a better agency. I could not have better agents. I mean, I've been with them for 13 and a half years now. Wow. But out in LA, it was always like a hip pocket, which is like you're kind of with them, you're kind of not with them, And this was before the Me Too movement, and, everybody has their own opinion on that. But let me tell you, it was rough in my industry before the Me Too movement. It was pretty much everything you hear.
Really?
Yeah, and it's very different now.
Sad to hear.
I will also note that I never had those experiences in Chicago. I love Chicago so much, and I love the actors, and I love the writers, the directors, the producers, everyone in Chicago. We might have crappy weather, but we have great people.
And it seems the opposite to me that, so from LA and then coming to Chicago, because most people like me. So you take the leap of faith to move to LA, and then your first
and
gig.
then I was like, I got like in for a few years, and I thought, I don't know. I think I want to be a midwife. So I put my month's notice in. I planned on quitting LA. I wanted to make a difference I wanted to feel like I was impacting other people's lives and not just existing. So I'd just been home on the farm, and my sister-in-law was going to have a baby. I went to a checkup with her, and I heard that baby's heartbeat. And I thought, this is what I need to do. It invoked something in me that was close to what I feel when I'm in front of the camera or on stage. And so I put my month notice in, and I fly back to LA, and I land, and I turned my phone on, and I had an audition for a play at the Mark Taper, which is their version of Broadway. Wow. And it was a play with Annette Bening, Alfred, Molina, Sarah Paulson, Frances Fisher, and it was for the next day.
Oh my gosh.
To play an understudy for two characters for the Cherry Orchard, which is, it's not Shakespeare, but it's also not your standard play. And so I remember going into a market just trying to get the pronunciations of Anya and Dunyasha. And when I went to the audition the next day, I didn't have money to park. I tried to use my debit card to print off my resumes, and it was declined. I was so poor. So what I did is I ended up parking a mile away where it was free, and then I brought different shoes that I could walk in. I planned on wearing heels in the audition because it's theater, so you know.
We're taking a quick break just to say hello because everybody knows Nano, and Nano knows real estate. And actually, I believe that's the name of her Instagram page. So if you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or know somebody in the market for a home, contact Nano from Baird & Warner. She's a Grayslake girl helping out Grayslake people.
So I'm wearing these ballet flats, and I get in there, and I say, the casting director's like, okay, let's go, you're next. And I go to put the heels on, and she goes, no, wear the flats, which I never in a million years would have worn. And I ended up booking it. So then I had to find a new place to live, and I stayed, and it just felt like it was, no, you gotta stay here a little bit longer. Keep doing this.
Okay, so I think about, and I hear your story, and I'm visualizing it, and it's fun to, like, how did you feel walking from the car that you didn't have money to park, and you're walking into this huge audition?
Yeah,
I'm sure I think nervous, but confident, but...
I joke with my husband now, even. I think that I am sometimes just so optimistic. Like, I left Iowa really believing that this is what I was supposed to do. And I still had that. Being broke, walking to this audition, this unreal optimism, and it's interesting because I think I still have that now. That's a double-edged sword. Because I was just saying I went on an audition this last week, and it was, a very big role for a very big TV show, and I was like, well, I'm going to book it. I'm overly optimistic, and I think it's a beautiful thing. When it doesn't work out, I'm shocked. And then I'm like, what? Equally, just so everybody knows, I'm also shocked when I do book it.
Right.
I realize that is part of my process. Part of my process is, and I talk to my boys about this, with the difference of nervousness and excitement, and that physiologically it actually and chemically are very similar to our bodies. Mm-hmm. And mentally we get to choose which one it is. Excitement and fear can feel very similar inside our bodies. And so oftentimes I will audition for something, think, this should be mine. Right. I can do this. And then, for example, with Somebody Somewhere, And I'm such a huge fan of Jay Duplass and Mark Duplass, the Duplass brothers. And then when I booked it, suddenly feeling like, oh my God, they chose the wrong person. What if I can never replicate what I did in the audition? You know, and that is part of my process. And I had this epiphany right before I started shooting that show. And that epiphany was, what if it's not that you just replicate what you did in the audition, but what if there's even more?
Right.
Like, why do we as humans, you know what I mean? This is the best I've ever done. There can't be anything better. But we don't know that. We limit ourselves so often.
Right.
And so Gary is my 12-year-old, and he's in 6th grade, and he's wrestling. And, you know, I just try to tell them, you know, and Henry does jujitsu, so they have these competitions. And I try to convey that what we're feeling in our bodies, we can use that. Fight or flight, kind of.
Absolutely.
You know, for an example. And I go through that all the time. I will say, now watching them compete makes me so nervous.
I can't even.
It's...
Watching my boy pitching on the mound
yeah.
is 1,000 more times nervous or anxious than actually doing it yourself.
Isn't it crazy?
Because you're like helpless. You're watching your children either sink or swim.
It really... I didn't know... My daddy used to always joke. We used to say, and now I say it to my children. I used to say, I love you, and he'd say, I love you. And I'd say, I love you more, and he's like, no, I love you more, and we'd go back and forth. And then he would finally say, and I grew up with a father who was highly in touch with his emotions, and I feel very blessed and grateful for that. And then I would hear his voice crack, and he would say, you don't even know what love is. And he didn't mean it as a negative. He was saying, what I feel for you, you know, my child, you haven't even experienced. And now as a parent, I actually fully get that.
Right.
You know.
Total different kind of love that you can't even explain.
Different kind of love.
I like your dad.
He is phenomenal. I always call him the farmer poet. He's really great. And then, you know, I was really, really blessed to grow up with a really strong mother. You know, she was the 3rd woman in Iowa to be a superintendent. She had her doctorate. She took a lot of flack from living in a small community, being a female superintendent.
Right.
I don't know if they were necessarily ready for it at the time. I think they thought maybe they were ready for it, right. But she loved what she did. And to be really honest, for someone who quit college, I've never went back, she was so supportive of me.
Really?
And her whole side of the family were professors, educators. And so I don't know that many people grow up with someone that is that supportive. And even right now I'm writing a novel. She's my editor.
Is she really?
She is my first editor. Now, she knows that
awesome,
before this gets published, we'll look for a professional editor. But when I lived in LA and I didn't have a computer, so I would go to the public library.
Oh my God.
To submit myself for acting jobs. But she in Iowa would get up in the morning and submit me. Every day.
Wow.
I mean, never, ever in one of those like stage mom ways. My mom is the most undramatic person in the world. Just this is how I show my love. You know, we talk about love languages. My mom's love language was showing up and doing whatever she could do. And interestingly enough, my husband's love languages are similar. And then my father was, you know, words and hugs and all that kind of stuff. So even though I grew up in a family where the maybe norm of these roles, you know, patriarchal, they were totally swapped. And so it was an interesting way to grow up.
Yeah, and it sounds like it taught you a lot too.
Yeah.
And maybe you think a little differently than people do in a regular stereotypical mom and dad.
Yeah.
Thing. Wow. Okay, so when you had your stage or so it was a play.
Yeah.
So you get to one of your first gigs there. You get to work with Annette Bening.
Well, this would have been. I mean, this was right before I was ready to leave. LA.
Okay.
So this was probably, so I did, I had some other experiences. So I did that 1-800-DENTIST commercial thing, and I had signed a contract, and they weren't going to pay me for it. And I remember them saying to me, we have in-house lawyers. You'll spend every last dime coming after us. So I decided to take them to small claims where it wouldn't cost me a cent.
Right.
And I won.
Did you really?
Yeah. I think I've always, the audacity of that girl. But I've always had that.
Awesome, though.
When I was in college, I worked on Mackinac Island as a worker for a summer. And I remember I was at a restaurant and I saw the owner of the Grand Hotel and he was getting up to leave, and I just bounded out of my seat and I walked up to him and I was like, I'm Heidi Johanningmeier. Would you take a meeting with me? And he said yes, and he did. And I wanted them to open up the theater in the Grand Hotel. And I think there is so much worth in just putting yourself out there into the world. And so I say to my boys all the time, if you don't show up, the worst thing that it will not, okay, so if you show up, the worst thing that can happen is somebody says no.
Right.
If you don't show up,
The
they already
is
said no.
Right.
And another thing that I heard recently, and I remind myself of this, is you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great.
Right.
And so every time I get an opportunity, I remind myself that it can seem overwhelming in the beginning, but it won't seem overwhelming if I put the time in.
Right.
So yeah, I think I had been out there about 4 years and had my ups and downs, and then did the play, and then I went right back to asking people what kind of tequila they wanted in their margarita.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that is the story for 90% of actors. I'm a working actor. I get my health care through SAG, and I love our union. We just had a really long, drawn-out summer fighting for some necessary rights. But that being said, it's not the Brad Pitts and Jennifer Aniston's. Most of the actors we see on shows, you're like, they kind of look familiar.
Right.
And they're in, they've done 20 other shows. But every day we're still putting ourselves out there. And so you kind of have to have that, like, everlasting optimistic mind.
Right.
To be in it.
Okay, so you've been on a lot of different things. I went on your IMDb and looked through, and I was like, holy shit, she's been on a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
So the most recent, I think the thing, because the Somewhere, I'm sorry.
Somebody Somewhere.
Somebody Somewhere.
Yes,
That was on
which
HBO,
I love so
right?
much. Yes, it's on HBO, and I was on it. I was physically on it for a majority of the first season. Mm-hmm. And then second season, you see me pop up a bit, and then they're getting ready to shoot their third season, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with that, but I love what they're putting out into the world, and I love their message. And, there's so many shows that even I enjoy them, but you don't feel great after you watch them. This show, you feel great after you watch it.
Okay, so I'm going to watch it.
Yeah,
now.
it's really beautiful. It's a beautiful show.
So being on TV, and I've just from being in the industry of broadcasting and being on the other side of the camera for a lot of things, perceptions of actors and people that are on TV, especially in the day and age that we live in, is, oh my God, they're on TV. It's a big deal. It's just the way that our society is done everything. So has your, like with your friends and your family and everything, as you're more recognized and being on all these shows or movies or things, any of that perception change?
Well, the really great thing is my kids could care less.
That was going to be another question, is how do your kids feel about it?
The only cool thing that happened this last year, and it was very short-lived, is Gary, again, my 12-year-old, who's in 6th grade, he was watching TikTok, and one of my scenes from Shameless was a TikTok.
Really?
And he was like, Mom. And I was like, what? And he's like, is this you? And I was like, yeah, and no, you can't watch the show.
There's nothing wrong with Shameless. There's nothing bad in there.
Such a great show.
But
again.
Not for a 12-year-old.
Yeah. And if I let my 12-year-old watch it, I'm sorry. In my household, I have to let my 9-year-old watch it. It's just how it goes.
I can understand that.
So that was pretty cool.
So he thought you were cool then.
He thought momentarily I was kind of cool.
Right.
I did have a really good conversation with him. He said that some of his classmates found out I was an actor, and I said, buddy, can I tell you something? They don't really know me.
Right.
You know me. It's easy to think something that somebody does is cool,
right,
and kind of put them on a pedestal.
Sure.
But I can tell you from working with multiple extremely famous people, the coolest people I know are my family and my really close friends.
Hey, that's great to hear.
It is 100% true. And a lot of those people, they don't ask for it either. And it's fun. Don't get me wrong. It really is neat. But
sure.
But it's such a one-sided view of people. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, Gary and Henry and I are watching this documentary on Messi right now. Mm-hmm. And I really hold a lot of value in seeing how people behave when they're not in the limelight. And so for me, that's really important. Mm-hmm. Just because I have absolutely worked with people who were not kind, not kind human beings. And then I worked with people that were so nice. And honestly, at the end of the day, that's what really matters.
Well, you still have to go to work every day like that. And if you get to work with somebody who's kind and they're cool to work with,
my God,
whether it's a director
or
somebody else acting with you, I'm sure it makes an enormous difference.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of that, coolest person you've worked with.
Oh.
On the actor side of things.
Alfred Molina on the play. And that's a name that a lot of people are not going to recognize, right. Okay? But if you look him up, he was in the Indiana Jones, Spider-Man, like, you know his face.
Like a character actor?
Yes. You don't know his name. And with the characters that I was playing, every night I went on right before he gave this big dramatic speech, okay? And he's sharing the stage with these other huge names, you know, like I met Clint Eastwood, I met Warren Beatty during that. It was very neat.
That's awesome.
Alfred Molina made me tear up every night watching his performance. Really? And every night it was a little bit different. And it was so authentic. And he was so in love with his wife and his family and so kind. And I'll never forget that. You don't forget the way that people treat you.
Right.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
This week, I found out that I didn't get a job that I really wanted. And I was feeling pretty blue about it. I laid down for a little bit with my dog. And when I woke up, I had a text from a very dear friend of mine, Eli. And they live in the city. And I had sent them an ornament with... They helped us pick out a tree, a Christmas tree. And on it said, the best memories are with you. And they had received it. I had sent it in the mail. And they said, it brought me to tears. And to wake up and read that text was such a grateful reminder that that is what matters to me. Touching other people's lives, being a good friend, being a good mother, being a good partner. Everything else, like... Let's be honest. So we just had the Emmys.
Right.
Best case scenario, 3 months you remember who won Best Actor. That's not a reason not to do it. We do it because I do it because I love it. I love it. It actually feels like a calling to me. I feel closer to my higher power when I'm doing lines with somebody else and in this magical moment. It's very magical. But the notoriety side, it doesn't last.
Right. Well, it helps you get other jobs, I'm sure.
It definitely helps you get other jobs.
But like you said, that I don't remember.
Yeah, no. But I try to be really careful about the differentiation between happiness and joy. Working makes me very happy, and it feeds a part of me. My family brings me joy.
Right.
My best friends bring me joy. So...
Wow. I think that's very well said. I think the messages that you're putting through here are extremely powerful.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Good.
Which I absolutely love. Because before we started recording, we were talking about family and kids and how much different it is to, from what you actually do to how people perceive you to actually what's important and what makes us happy.
Yeah.
And defining success, everybody does differently, but it doesn't seem like you define success as your work.
Not anymore. And, aged, it doesn't bother me saying I'm 41 years old, but it took me 39 years. I mean, it took me a long time to figure that out. It took me a long time to figure that out, and I wouldn't switch places with the 20-year-old version of me. I like where I am right now.
Yeah, so working with something you're so passionate about and that you love in a highly competitive right?
Yep.
So let's say you go to audition for a show, like maybe the last one you did. How many other people are auditioning for that part?
Well, now with things, how casting is being run. So after COVID, we never really got back in the rooms. And a lot of my heart goes out to casting, to be really honest, because a lot of them have had to downsize their teams, their facilities. It's become a different thing. Everybody is doing self-tapes. Now, the positive side of self-tapes for me is I do it from my home. I have a taping room. I have the backdrop, lights, everything like that. It's definitely brought about even more appreciation for that making a film, making a TV show is a group effort.
Yes.
Everybody has to bring their A game. If lighting is off, if sound is off, I don't care how good the acting is. It's not going to come across. And that is something I love about what I do. I love the family aspect of working on these Chicago shows. I love working with the same people on different shows. So a lot of the crew from Chicago PD were the crew on Somebody Somewhere. And so they remembered me when I came to set. And that is really beautiful and really sweet. And you just walk in feeling like you're a part of a family already.
Yeah.
But I would say, so right now, I'm being seen on shows shooting in Vancouver. Well, if I'm being seen for shows shooting in Vancouver, when I go on these Chicago shows, so are people from, across the pond.
Right.
So are people from Canada, LA, obviously, New York, obviously, Atlanta. That is I guess you could say, downside, is that you've just opened the market up so much. Now, the flip side of that is I'm being seen for shows, too, that I wasn't necessarily, as a Chicago talent, being seen for before.
Right.
So I think you choose to find the positives, and where there's a negative, not getting in the room to look the director in the eye.
Yes.
Well, the opposite of that is, if I'm getting 13 pages of sides, I don't have to be off book. I can kind of set it up so that I can look at those sheets in between and spend more time with my family. Whereas it used to really stress me out that I was going to go into Chicago with all these sides. I got the audition the night before. I need to be as close to off book so that I can present my eyes up,
right.
and not be looking down at my sheet. And I remember almost going to my room and being separated from the whole family for the night. I don't do that anymore. But yeah, it's huge. I was on hold for a recurring role on a Chicago show just a year ago. And it was down to me and an LA talent. They wanted to know what tattoos I had. Did I have any tattoos?
Oh, really?
At that point, you're like, I've booked it.
Right. Or I need to go get a tattoo.
Yeah. And I didn't.
And you didn't get
I
that
still
one.
didn't get it, and so it is repeatedly putting your absolute best foot forward every time and knowing that 99% of the time you're going to hear no. But every time you have to put your best foot forward. So I've started to try to really enjoy the process.
Right. Which I'm sure you have to mentally train yourself to do that as well.
Yeah, well, that's an opportunity to act too. So do I love acting or do I love booking the job? Booking the job makes my ego feel really good.
Sure.
And it helps me provide for my family. But if I really love acting, and that's why I got into this. You know, I didn't grow up going to the movie theaters often. I didn't get to watch TV that much, to be really honest. I love disappearing into this whole different being. And for a kid who really had issues with being bullied growing up, it gave me an opportunity to not be myself. And I think that's why I started doing it. I know that that's why I started doing it. And I still love it for that reason. I still love getting sides where I'm like a kick-ass lieutenant telling people to get their, you know, SHIT together. Like, I tend to play really strong women, and I love that.
Interesting that you get chosen for those parts.
Yes, I love.
Note to self.
Yeah, playing strong women who have more than one side. It's really fun for me.
Yeah, and I've seen some of the when I was stalking you.
Yes.
I got to watch some other roles. And one of my favorite clips, I think it's on your demo reel that's on IMDb, is was it 100 Days to Live?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it was a really emotional scene.
That was...
And didn't you guys win an award for that as well?
We did. We won Best World Premiere for the San Diego Film Festival.
Which is a big deal.
That was a big deal.
Accolades are, but those are things you gotta be like, yes.
You know what? It does make me feel good.
Yeah.
And somebody somewhere was just nominated for a Peabody.
Fantastic.
And I was like, it almost doesn't feel real though. And that's why you do have to remember, do you enjoy doing the work? Because it's so funny. It's almost like currency, okay? Mm-hmm. We put value on money.
Right.
But it's just paper.
Right.
Okay, so same with titles, same with awards. We put the value on it. But when we were nominated for that, we had just come back from COVID. And so a lot of things still, you're not getting together for stuff. When we had our, premiere for season 1, none of us got to get together. They sent bottles of champagne through the mail.
So you didn't even get to watch the premiere together.
Right. So you really do have to focus on that. I think we talked about this right before we turned the mics on, but I think that's why you see a lot of depression manifest into suicide in my occupation. Because we think we'll be happier when we get that accolade. We think that once I get that title, then other people will respect me. And then I'll respect myself because other people respect me. Right. And what I was mentioning to you is I taught an acting class at Vagabond in Chicago. And I said to these young kids, they're in their 20s, but we're going to call them young kids.
Right, they are kids, yes.
And I said, listen, before we even start the class, please take this to heart. Find happiness today. If you're not happy today, I promise you, when you get the show, when you get the series, when you get the film, when it's done shooting, you will revert right back to where you are. And if that's not happy, you feel empty and it doesn't make sense to you. You've accomplished what you wanted to accomplish. But again, that difference of joy, and so I really, with my boys, they want to do very different things. It's very cute and they're young, Gary wants to be on the Supreme Court and wants to change the world. And I have no doubt that he will change the world. And then Henry wants to be a fireman like his daddy and a rock climber, maybe a musician. So very different.
Yes.
Yes. And I had them Google the other day. We were driving home from jiu-jitsu and I said, will you look up what the, survey what the happiest jobs are? And they did.
I can't wait to hear what they are.
Yeah, they did. One was fireman was up there.
I'm guessing purple and service industries helping other people.
Yeah, it was interesting what it was. And Gary said, well, I want to make a lot of money too. I said, well, add that. Add it. What are the highest paying jobs that they're the happiest?
Right. With the lowest depression rate.
Yeah, yes. Lowest depression rate. you know,
I can spend the most time with my family.
Least amount of divorce.
Right.
They're like nothing. No. But I do think it's easy for kids with TikTok, with YouTube. We're in this state of constant comparison. And comparison will steal your joy. Yeah. Every time.
Line, I don't know exactly what it is, but comparison is the thief of joy.
It is.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. I was telling you earlier, and I almost wish these people knew it. I have muted people on Instagram, and I would highly recommend this, even if I'm included in that muting.
Right.
If you look at somebody's profile, their social feed, you know, and it does not bring you joy, if it does not lift you up, if it makes you question yourself in a way that is not going to make you tweak what you're doing and then be happy with yourself, if it makes you feel shame, stop following them.
Amen.
Because what we put into the world comes back. So, one, that person doesn't deserve your negativity. And two, you don't deserve that negativity.
Right.
It's not making life easier.
Yes, and we only have so much energy to give.
We only have so much energy.
So why waste it on something negative like that?
You know, I think it was Michelle Obama. She was talking with Jay Shetty, who I love, and highly recommend following him. He brings me so much joy. And she said, and she was not saying this is a scientific fact, okay? This was her saying, I think. She said, I think, and I am absolutely, these are my words now of what she said, so it's not word for word. She virtually saying, I think that we will look back at the usage of phones the way that we look back at the consumption of cigarettes. And I would agree. It's very addictive. I don't know that it's always positive for our health.
No.
Especially our mental health.
No.
And although not like cigarettes, I do think there are positive aspects. One positive aspect to social media, and I will always put this forward, I think for marginalized people, and that can be sexually, that can be diversity, that can be just what you like. Right. You can find other people who make you feel seen. And that is very beautiful and very important. So follow those people.
Right. Follow the positive ones that make you feel good. Yes.
We don't need to follow what other people follow, you know? So yeah, I'm a big person of, you know, talk about we are what we eat. Mm-hmm. We absolutely are what
we're consuming.
Our mind is consuming as well.
Right. I find it to be almost a double bad that if your children are consuming what their friends think are cool, and then they tell them to watch that, it's not even what they thought was cool. It's what their friends think they're cool, and then they're consuming double negatives to themselves.
Right. A very big thing that I have been trying to work on and trying to make a priority is asking, particularly my older son, how are his friends doing? How's your friend doing? What's going on? Any relationships? You know, and the other thing is a lot of times when they walk through the door, they don't want to have those conversations already. We're having the preteen. He wants to talk my ear off, though, when I'm exhausted and getting ready to turn out the light. Absolutely. And you know what? I've been trying to remember that I am already 6 years away from him being 18. Right now. So this is the oxymoron, okay? Right now, this moment in my life, when I've just heard no on a job that I really wanted, okay? So there's that. Right now, though, I think might be some of the best days of my life. My kids, the age they're at, you know, they say days are long, but the years are short. So true. I mean, there's this really great, I think it's Bill Hader, SNL, and there's this great meme where he's like being real chill, and he's like, me in the morning, and I'm going to be that chill parent before my kids go get on the bus. And then it like flashes him being like, I am losing my mind. And it's like half an hour of them being up. That's real. Come on. I'm not a saint, and I'm not going to say I'm a saint. I mess up every single day. every single day, I wish I would have tweaked a conversation I had. I wish I would have said something a little different.
Well, the fact that you're aware of that.
Thanks.
Do we get to change that?
Yeah.
Or as much as we can, anyway.
Yeah.
It's not the easiest thing to do.
But I want to know what he's watching. I want to see what games. We used to do this thing, and we did this for a while. We did this thing where Gary would be on a TV, Henry would be on a TV, Jason and I would be on a TV. And about a year ago, maybe not quite a year ago, we switched that. And now I watch a show that, do I want to watch it? I don't know, but I watch it with my sons. So a show that I would highly recommend is called The Rookie. And it is a phenomenal show. It's a cop show in Los Angeles. Covers a lot of social going-ons in a positive way. Good role models. Nothing is black and white.
And it's good for that age.
It's great for that age. There are a couple things where I had to remind them that is an actor.
Right.
With the blood covered. They're getting paid for this. And as soon as they call cut, they're like, hey, can somebody get me a Twizzler? Like, that's the good thing about being in my job is taking that, smoke screen out of the equation.
Right.
It's definitely fine for 12-year-olds. I should put it that way. But now we're watching Outer Banks, which again,
there's some parts,
but it brings up good discussions. And they're watching this stuff, whether it's with me or seeing things about on TikTok anyway. So I feel like I'm being realistic. How do you feel about that?
Right, have a discussion about
what do you think about that?
Right.
They are obviously underage drinking. That is not a good decision. Let's talk about that.
Right.
Why do you think they ended up here? Because of multiple bad decisions.
A lot on that show, yes.
Important question that I've asked Gary in the past, and no judgment, I tell him that. I say, we're not saying that somebody's a good or a bad person by answering this question, but do you think this person is a good influence, a bad influence, or either way? It's important to pick those people out in your lives, and not to get rid of them, not to discard them. He had somebody they hung out that was not making good decisions. And, my first instinct as a parent was, you're not going to hang out with that kid anymore. And then I took a breather, put myself in a mommy timeout, and I realized, what if exactly what that kid needs is my son in his life? Because when I heard the entirety of the story, it was when my son said, you know what, I'm going to go home, that the whole group of kids went home. So I said, when you are with this kid, I said, you know what, you can hang out with him, but you are 100% responsible for your actions.
Right.
It will never be an excuse, they did it, so I didn't. I need you to know that when you are with this kid, you have to think for yourself. When you're with this kid, you guys can talk about it. And when you're this kid, follow his lead.
Right. And then your son can be the positive influence to the kid that maybe is having issues because we don't know what's going on in his life.
We have no clue what's going on in that household.
Right. So maybe your son can recommend not to do something, an alternative, and he can change that kid's life.
Yeah. And back to what you just said, we have no idea what is happening in somebody's household. And that goes for adults too. I've gotten a lot better about road rage. I was never huge, but I have tried to get to a place where I tap the wheel, I hum a little bit, and I remind myself, for the most part, and I really actually believe this, because for the most part, I don't think humans want to be mean to one another.
No.
I really don't. I think we can get in high stressful situations and react a certain way. Reacting is big. That's something that I've been thinking about. Taking a pause. I feel like if I got a tattoo, it could be pause. Pause.
Right. Have you ever seen The Power of the Pause?
No.
Anything about that? Look that up.
Okay.
Google that.
Okay.
And how powerful that is and how it can change your entire life. Power of the Pause.
I think that pausing can be really good. In the book that I'm working on right now, I'm working on a novel.
Yes, let's talk about the novel.
So I'm working on a novel just because as an artist, I put myself out there for these auditions, but there are so many other variables. You know, I've helped on the casting side. I've seen, it literally can be that you're an inch too tall one day. The next day you're an inch too short. There are a million reasons you may not get a role. And to be honest, there are so many talented people in the job I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, so not to belittle and say, so-and-so got this because of this. No, everybody was really talented. So it came down to this. But I needed something that was in my control, that I could artistically have 100% control over, you know? So actually, it was Jason, my husband, my partner, who kind of came up with this idea, and I thought he was crazy at first. I mean, even when I tell people a synopsis of the story, I kind of preface it with, I know it sounds a little bit unrealistic.
Right.
It's not a comedy. But virtually, it's about a group of 6 different moms who are very different, politically different, culturally different, everything different as different can be. And they have to come together over trying to help their sons. And the reason I believe it works is every single mother that I've ever asked, if there was even a 1% chance that you could save your child, would you do it? Or would you stay in the safety of your home? I've never even heard a pause.
Right.
They'd do it. So it's about motherhood. It's about finding that amongst 1,000 different differences, we have common threads. And those common threads, even if they're few, they're stronger than we think they are. And they're really beautiful. And so I'm writing this book. My mom is helping me edit it. And then a dear friend of mine, Meg, she's going to look at it. And I just started submitting to literary agents. So
Wow.
It's a whole new world that I'm not, you know.
How deep are you into this?
I am about 87,000 words into it.
87,000.
87,000 words. So that's, to give you an example, that's what they deem like an average novel.
Okay.
So I'm like 350 pages in.
Okay. So when you write something like this,
Yeah.
I'm like racking my brain because I'm thinking about me doing this and going, wow, it has to be very exciting to write, but then
the editing is just
the editing's got to be, I wouldn't want anything to do with that.
Well, you know, my mind is definitely a little ADHD. Okay, we were talking about how I can't grasp anything without captions on. I'm such a reader. Now, that being said, when I was originally writing it, you'd have these days. My average was 4,000 words a day. So you're pumping out this idea. You know, you're seeing it happen. Well, what I would originally pump out made sense kind of only to my mind.
Sure.
So now what the process is, the book is written. So then what I had to go back through is I edit it. I make sense of it. It's painful. It's very painful.
Yeah.
Also,
you ever sit back and go, what the hell was I thinking that night?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I definitely go through the whole, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great.
Right.
So there are times when I'm reading what I wrote and I think, why would anyone read this? And then I have another cup of coffee.
Right.
Or I snuggle
That's a
my
little
dog.
self-doubt there as well.
Huge. I have a lot of self-doubt. You know, for a person who is really optimistic, it's like the other side of me has a lot of self-doubt.
Right. It fights
so
back.
I wouldn't want to ever have people think that I walk around confident, because I wouldn't want people to think that that's an expectation for them. Self-doubt is normal when you're going for big dreams.
Of course.
You know?
And the bigger they are, the more self-doubt you'll have.
Yeah. And that's okay.
Right.
As long as you say, F it.
Right.
I'm gonna try.
Right.
I'm gonna try.
And the bigger roles you go for, the bigger things you do in your life, everybody has some kind of imposter syndrome.
You know what? Absolutely. I remember I was in Detroit. I was shooting Detroit 187. And it was the night before I was going to shoot. I was in the hotel. I went down to the gym to work out, and Tommy Flanagan was there for a huge guest star. Tommy Flanagan has been in everything. So again, it's maybe not a name you recognize, but if you look him up, you're like, he's been in Braveheart. Come on, you know?
Right.
Tons of stuff. And he came up to me and he's like, oh, are you shooting on the show? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, when did you start? And I said, tomorrow. And he said, me too. And he goes, I'm so nervous and I feel like I'm going to vomit. And I was like, what?
That was great for you to hear, I bet.
Oh my God. It was life-changing. And that's
Everybody
why I
feels
always
this
want to
way.
be vulnerable with other people and be honest about where I'm at. Because him being vulnerable in that moment, I remember saying to him, what? You are still nervous? He goes, I never, ever have started a job without feeling this way. Every job, the first day, I feel like I'm going to vomit. The difference is pushing through that. You know what I mean? Not letting the fear overcome us.
Absolutely.
Um,
And it shows that you care about it. So
Yeah.
you'll never be nervous about anything you don't care about.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a really vulnerability. When we can do that for one another, I just think it's really beautiful.
Right, and he probably had zero idea that when he's telling you that and how much that actually helped you.
Right.
And you'd be talking about it today.
Yeah, years
going,
later.
How important that was to you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a good lesson for everybody, you know, from our kids to anybody that's actually starting to do anything.
Yeah.
And that's usually, for me, it reminds me that I'm on the right track.
Yeah.
Because once you doubt yourself or like, wow, okay, at least you set your goals high enough that you don't think you can do it.
Yeah.
Because if you set them low, then what are we even doing here?
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
it makes it
And
no fun at all.
oftentimes, the beauty of it is we don't even know what we're capable of.
No, and sometimes other people see it and you don't.
Yeah.
At times I've said, there's no way you can do that. And somebody's like, are you crazy? Of course
Yeah.
you were made to do that.
Those are the people you want to keep as close as possible.
Yes. And anybody that says differently, you can
Oh,
get rid of
I
them.
remember I was dating a boy in high school, and I went to his house to meet his parents, and I told his dad, we would have been juniors in high school, I said, I want to go to college for acting, I want to be an actress, and he laughed in my face.
Love it.
He laughed in my face.
I'm sure at the time it wasn't great for you.
It wasn't great, but you know, honestly, a lot of people laughed in my face. And one of the few people that didn't was my mother. You need one person.
Yep.
I tell my kids all the time, so you have this huge population of people that are passing by you every day, going in and out of your lives. And most of those people don't wish you harm, but they also, it's neither here nor there. Okay? It's just mass people. A good amount of people, but not that huge population, are people that they wish you well, but they don't really want you to do better than they do. You know, like it's all a comparison thing. We're human. It is what it is.
Right.
And then there's this tiny portion of people, and sometimes it's one person. Doesn't matter. If you can find one person who your win is their win, and their win is your win, those are the people to keep close.
That's right.
You know, I would rather have one best friend. My best friend is Kim DeVito. And she is, I'm going to get emotional about this, but she is overnight cardiothoracic surgical nurse at Loyola. She is the hardest working woman I have ever met in the world. She is the strongest person I ever met in the world. Her faith in people and the world is one of the most beautiful things. And you asked me about the greatest people I've met in my life. It's her.
That's awesome.
And I am so blessed to have her in my life. You know, they say we need 3 people in our lives. One is our cheerleader. She's my cheerleader. They will tell you that you can do anything that you put your mind to. And I think I'm my children's cheerleader. I hope I always am. I hope they find other cheerleaders too. I can share that position. The second person is we need somebody who's the realist. I think that's my partner. That's my husband, Jason. He's like, that was really good. Can you do it this next time? Because he shoots my tapes with me.
Right.
He is very honest. The realist, you know. And then the third is the partner who will grow alongside you, who will do those things with you, you know. And they can be the same person. They don't have to be.
Right.
You know. Gray's Lake. I met Kim DeVito in Gray's Lake, and I think that we live in such a special town. I always say when I go to the city and people are like, why do you live in the suburbs? And I'm like, well, one, it's very expensive in the city.
Absolutely.
I live in a really, and I always say this, I live in a really special town. I live in a town that feels like a small town. We have no fast food drive-thrus on our center street. We have cute restaurants. We have used bookstores. We have a beautiful library. I love libraries. We have great schools. We have amazing teachers. Miss Boxer, Miss Laguda. I mean, I could just list tons of teachers. We have a pride parade. We have diversity. Don't get me wrong. We don't have Lincoln Park diversity, but we have our diversity. We are loving. Come June, among our flag, you will see flags all over town. I think we are a welcoming town. I also think that we have differing opinions that are respected within this town and actually discussed within this town. You know, I hit on this in my book, and politically, when politics were set up, it was supposed to be a balance. Okay, one side was supposed to bring the other side to the center. We were supposed to make each other better. That's always an option if we decide to use it. I think Grays Lake is really special, and I can't imagine living anywhere else. P.S. though, I hate this weather.
Right. I don't blame you at all.
But great people. Great community.
It really is.
I mean,
really
it doesn't get any better.
No, we love it here. And now we're going to pause for a second, and we're going to do our Grays Lake hot seat questions.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll see how much she's actually listened to before.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah,
okay.
So we'll go with this. So just quick rapid fire questions, which I believe that you're going to be awesome at.
Okay.
And I usually start at the top, so I'm going to start at the bottom.
Ooh.
And I always find how these are different but clear for other things. What's the last thing you purchased on Amazon?
Ooh, moccasin, like new sole things. Do you know what I'm saying? Inserts.
Yes.
Yes.
What is your favorite book you've ever read?
Oh, favorite book I've ever read? Probably Nightingale.
What do you put on your pizza?
Cheese and cheese and cheese and crushed red peppers. Oh, and if I can section off a portion that the kids won't eat,
sure.
Green olives.
Green olives are my favorite.
I love green olives.
Me too. How many texts do you send per day?
Oh, I'm on these chains that sometimes I want to reply unsubscribe, but I love them. How do you find that out even?
I don't know. Approximately. 10, 400?
Oh, no, way more. Probably 40.
Okay.
Yeah.
40. What was the first car you ever owned?
Oh, that's a good question. I had a truck. It was from the city heating and plumbing, and the seat where you sat was so hollowed out from the previous owner that I had to sit on top of a pillow so that I could see above the wheel. It was supposed to be white, but it was cream with rust.
Right.
And it was a pile of junk.
Wow. Tell me that car had a nickname.
Yeah, we had personalized plates.
Yes, and what was
and
that?
It was the number 2, because we had a foreign exchange student, Larissa, and I, who drove it around. Too cute.
Too cute.
So it was too cute, and I still have those license plates.
That's awesome. It sounds like that truck was really cute.
It was an eyesore, but yeah.
Right. What is your biggest fear?
Oh, wow. I've been working on a fear list. My biggest fear is that the world will not be kind to my children.
Valid. Tell me about the second time you got arrested.
Oh. I think I signed an NDA for that.
Not the first time, but the second time.
The second time. You know what? Almost every male in my family has spent the night in jail, but I have not.
Okay. That's awesome. I saw the NDA, so I wasn't supposed to ask that one. What's your favorite candy?
Oh, favorite candy. Red Hots.
How many times do you exercise per week?
Per week. Now, this is new.
Okay.
So I don't want to put out information there and you think I wasn't working out.
We're not going to hold you to this.
Okay, so I was not working out. Baby wearing was my working out, okay? And then I not nicely got told by my doctor that I'm aging and I need to start working out again. They actually were very sweet.
Why would a doctor tell you that?
Well, because I was having shoulder pain. Yeah, and they were like, sweetheart, you need to... And she looked like a Peloton commercial. She was this beautiful woman, and I was like, ugh. So, long story short, I had an audition where I was going to play a lifeguard in Hawaii, and I had to actually be able to swim in the ocean, and I am a doggy paddler at best. And I realized that I really did not like feeling like I wasn't going to get a role because of the physicality of it. So I started working out. So I would say that I work out probably 4 times a week, but I do 15-minute workouts.
Okay.
That's the amount of time
I'm
I
not
have.
judging you. I'm not judging you.
That's what I got, people.
Have you ever won an award?
I have won an award.
Tell me your favorite award that you've won then. That you're most proud of. We're not judging you by your awards.
Well, I was the Dairy Princess.
Right. Well, cha-ching.
Cha-ching.
That's all we need. What's your go-to karaoke song? You have to have a karaoke song.
I Will Survive.
The last show that you binged watched.
Oh, well, we were just been watching Outer Banks. I'm trying to think, but the one that I watched without the kids is Slow Horses. Is it Slow Horses?
Yep, Slow Horses.
I can pretty much watch anything, but if you want me to recommend the best show to binge watch.
Yes, please.
Is Somebody Somewhere. No, okay. Is Somebody Somewhere. No, it's probably the BBC version of Sherlock Holmes.
Interesting.
It's Cumberbatch, right?
Yes.
It's unreal. Amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What is your favorite Gray's Lake event to attend?
Grace Lake Days.
Grace Lake.
Without a doubt.
Okay. If you had...
Oh, wait. Can I take that back?
Yeah, take it back.
Our Pride Parade.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha. But then I know what your second one is anyway.
Yes.
Favorite movie you've ever watched?
Oh, okay. Can I give 2?
Sure.
Okay. Great Expectations.
Yeah, it wasn't everything I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. You know what? A lot of people feel that way.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, sorry. And then another one that's an oldie, it's Jane Seymour and Christopher Reeves, is Somewhere in Time.
Yes. One of my father's favorite soundtracks, too.
Oh, I love the
music
soundtrack.
that's in there.
Yes, I love it.
Hey, bartender, can I have a...
Diet Coke.
Good for you.
Thanks. I'm sober, so yeah.
That is good. First concert.
Oh, Lone Star. And I took a rose up, and he sang to me.
Stop it.
Yeah, it was amazing. But best concert.
Yes.
Can I do best concert?
Sure.
Macklemore.
Really?
With my kids. Unreal. Unreal amazing. It was Macklemore and Imagine Dragons, and I have never, as a performer, it was so inspiring to see him give every bit of himself out there. It was just, if you can go.
That's
Unreal.
awesome.
Yeah.
Favorite vacation you've ever been on?
I love Mexico. I love the people. I love the culture. I love the food. But we just went to Greece. I love Greece too. Again, it's the people. I love
Absolutely.
The people are everything. So, once in a lifetime vacation, go to Greece. Right. It's unreal.
So where would you go if you had a choice to go anywhere in the world, somewhere you haven't been?
Someplace I have not been that I would go. We're dreaming about this all the time. My kids and I talk about where we want to visit, I feel like, on a daily basis. I have got to travel quite a bit. Places that I have not been that I would like to go. Probably Iceland.
Iceland's a popular answer for that, and it's on my list as well.
Yeah, it's supposed to be amazing.
Yes.
Gary's would be Alaska.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you had to bring a friend from out of town or a famous person to Gray's Lake and say, I have to show you how cool our town is, where do you take them first?
Oh, where do I take them first? That's easy. Easy. Gray's Lake Feed Store.
Awesome.
110%.
That's fantastic. And the first
if I wasn't acting, I would be putting in my resume there.
Really?
Yeah, I love it.
I don't disagree with you at all. You did not play a high school sport.
I did.
Oh, you did?
It had to be, I couldn't do it on the weekends. It had to be a sport that was Monday through Friday and not on the summers. So, yeah. So I could do cheerleading, basketball, and football, but I couldn't do wrestling cheerleading. And the football cheerleading, we were competitive. Like, before it was a big thing, we did it. Like, two hospitalizations I had.
Wow. You mean
for
that's
being
a big
flyer.
thing now? No one does. No,
I
it's not a big deal at all.
I think there's this thing. What are they called? In Gray's Lake?
Yes, and actually our cheerleading squad right now at Central is totally
unreal.
kicking ass.
I know.
Yes,
yeah.
I get all the updates.
But I am not athletic. at all.
Okay.
Never have been.
I gathered that by your swimming comment.
Yeah, I'm not.
Okay. Are you a better swimmer now? Have you
No.
learned how to swim?
What's
Swimming
funny is my great uncle, Captain Webb, was the first person to ever swim the English Channel without a life vest. My mother was a lifeguard. My uncle was a lifeguard and swam for college. And I am not joking you. I am a doggy paddler.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's keep in touch. I want to see how that works out for you. Like
I
if
know.
you end up going to swimming lessons or you wear those floaties around your arm on.
When we go on vacation, I bring a life vest.
Do you really?
I do.
Good for you.
Thanks.
Safety first.
Safety first.
That's right. If you had to have a theme party at your house, what would it be?
I kind of love everything about the 70s. So probably the 70s.
Wonderful. Would the 12-year-old version of yourself think you're cool?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of makes me emotional. Yeah.
That's great. And that means that you've followed your dreams and done what you've wanted to. Do you have a hidden talent that we need to know about?
Oh, yeah.
What in the hell is that?
I don't know, to be really honest. That's a sound that I'm making. And my father can do it. And I can do it.
Let's hear it one more time, though. Okay.
I don't even, by the way, it's never brought me any money.
Okay. Well, I think we need to put that on a demo tape for you. At least because now, once again, somebody's hidden talent. I will not sleep tonight, and I'm just going to hear that. And I will roll around going, why did she have to do that to me? Oh, my God. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, because of time, you've expressed about our town. I want to know how you ended up in Grays Lake.
Well, that's a funny kind of story.
Yeah.
So we moved to the Midwest because my husband got offered a full ride to get his master's in art.
Okay.
When I first met him, cute story, he was managing an art store, but it was also a bookstore. I walk in and he's got this fireman shirt on. He's super quiet. Okay. So I am not. I had just been dog walking. That's what I did in LA to make money. It was awesome. So I walk up to him and I say, so are you a fireman or are you just wearing the shirt?
Nice.
He says nothing, and he walks off. And then he tells his coworker that this girl just came up and made fun of him. Yeah. So, long story, we're engaged. We date. He finally gets my number, like 2 months later. We date for 3 months. We get engaged at 3 months. We get married 3 months later.
Wow.
We've been married for 15 or 16 years, something like that. So, but I did know that he was interested in being a fireman. So that's you have to have that in the background. But my grandfather was a professor. I thought, heck yes. I met with an agency in Chicago when we came for an art show. So we were like, okay, let's do this. So we moved to Chicago. He gets done with his master's and he gets offered a second master's at a different college if he'll teach. And so he gets a second master's up in Milwaukee. And I'm still doing acting out of Chicago. He gets both masters, and he says, and during this, to get it paid for, he was a professor. And he says, I don't want to be a professor. So I said, okay, what do you want to do? Right. And he says, I want to be a fireman. So he looks up firehouses around Chicago, and weirdly enough, in Round Lake, we see that they're having an open house. And I say to him, we should just go to this open house. This is definitely who I am. So we have no kids. We're living up in Milwaukee at the time. We drive to Round Lake. We go to this open house. And we go up. I take him up to the chief at the time. And I say, my husband is really interested in becoming a fireman. At the time, he had his EMT. He wasn't a paramedic, but he had his EMT from Los Angeles. Long story short, he gets paid on call with Round Lake, and you have to live within 5 miles. Mm-hmm. So we start looking in Grays Lake and Round Lake, and that's how we ended up here. He's with Glenview now, but we find this fixer-upper, which, if you don't know, we live in the old farmhouse. It's bright red, but it was a rehab. It was a lot of work that we've done together and made our home. Another part of that is 6 months after we lived here, we put our house on the market. I just thought it's too small of a town. I don't think I want to live here.
Really?
I think I'm going to be like the weird mom, you know? And I was driving back and forth from Chicago, and we put our house on the market, and out of nowhere, we start meeting the greatest people. We met the Mudd family. Now we know multiple Mudds. They literally helped me raise my children. Kim and Danny Mudd. I remember Gary. I was picking him up one time. I'd been in Los Angeles shooting, and he goes, "Bye, Mama." And I was like, "Oh, I am not okay with that." And then I stopped and I thought, how amazing.
Absolutely.
He loves this person and feels this comfortable. So that's Mama Kim. And then Nancy Mudd helped me raise Henry when I had auditions. Savannah, Joey, Danny Boy, Luke, the Monahans, all these people came into our life, and we took our house off the market. It was just like...
Well, that's a testament.
Yeah. The people... We have a cute town, but the reason to stay is for the people.
Right. Which is funny because you said the same thing about vacationing. It's all about the people.
It really is. It's big.
All about it.
I'm really big about how people treat one another.
Right.
Yeah, even when I work with people, when I look back at good and bad experiences in the acting world, a lot of times it boils down to what the environment was on set. Oftentimes we don't know how the smallest little gesture can affect someone. I saw this in somebody's house. It said, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. And I think that can spill over. You know, it's the little things. It's the smile. I read somewhere that if you hold contact with somebody for more than 3 seconds, add a smile. You know what I mean? Like,
right. And not everybody is like that.
No, but if we could be, you know, in little ways.
Yeah,
I grew up with a father who spoke to everyone. Right. You know, I grew up with a grandmother that one of the coolest things, we lost her to Alzheimer's. And when she was really late in the stage of Alzheimer's, I remembered walking across the kitchen, and she looked at me and she winked at me. And I'm a winker. And I was like, that's her.
Right.
That's who she was. So although a lot of her I felt like I lost, she was still there.
See, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful story, by the way. Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this stuff with us.
Oh, this is so fun.
Yeah.
I love that you're doing this for the community.
Thank you.
I think it's very cool. And
I've got to meet the coolest people.
Well,
yes.
That's a testament to the town.
And then we get to share it. Yeah, every time I turn around, I'll have somebody come in. My favorite thing is to have a guest like you came in today. I don't know anything about you.
Yeah.
So now it's nice to know the people that are in our community, especially the ones that are really making a difference, and you spreading your words of random acts of kindness and how to treat people and how to take care of our kids and make everybody better. That spills over to our entire community. So.
Well, I think what's so cool about what you do is we think we know people based off social media. You know, and the truth is we can all smile for a photo, you know, but sitting down and speaking with somebody and being vulnerable shows us that we're not alone.
Amen.
And everybody needs that.
I know.
Everybody needs that. There's not a person out there that doesn't want to be seen and told, you are okay as you are. I see you.
Right.
I've been there.
Right.
You know?
And it's funny because a lot of people that we bring on, like I'll call and ask like somebody to be on, and they think that they're not interesting enough, or they don't bring value. And those are the episodes I get done with, and I look at them, give them a big hug, and go like, do you realize how extraordinary you are? Like, this is awesome. And they're sharing that with their community. And I think people that listen to that, and anybody listening now that you don't think you have, everybody's got a story. Everybody has a story, and every story is important. Absolutely. And having a town of people with different stories that bring value and bringing together is a huge thing. Even if you feel like today is a really rough day and your story would be a nightmare. I just told a younger boy this the other day. I said, someday your story and the survival of it might be exactly what pulls somebody out of a dark place. Mm-hmm. Keep chugging along. I think people think they're alone and that things have not happened to other people and that you're never going to get out of the situation that you're in.
Yeah.
But actually, misery loves company, but if you have somebody that's positive who's been through that misery, that we can all help each other out.
Yeah, for sure. I've spoken at several of Grays Lake schools, and something I always start off by saying is sharing how I was bullied as a child, because I think we have this idea of, in the past I've been pegged a certain way, but when we share our stories, you see the depth of somebody. And we all have depth. Every single person has something about them that is beautiful, that is dark, that they're working on, but it's all worthy, It's all worthy of our time. As a child, I didn't feel like my time was worth anybody's, and I think that that's a shame. So I always, when I go in schools, I want to kind of reach out to those kids that are struggling and say, believe in yourself. That's where it starts. Right. That's where the spark starts and turns into a flame. Regardless of where you are today, it doesn't mean that's where you end up.
No, and we always look back at those times and go, wow, I never thought I'd get through that.
I know.
And sometimes we say, thank God that happened.
Yeah. 1,000%.
Yes.
We were talking about that before we turned it on. Sometimes you feel like you're being buried alive and maybe you're being planted.
I'm going to use that all day today. And I'm going to coin it as my own, by the way, too.
Go for it.
I'm not giving you any credit on that at all. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And I'm going to go watch some shows that you're in.
Yay!
Yes. And then I'll give you my full report.
Okay.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Yes.
I can handle it.
So, Grays Lake, thank you, everybody, for listening. We appreciate each and every one of you. And do me a favor, if you're listening to the show and maybe have a neighbor or a friend that doesn't listen, the best way that we can make our community even stronger is share the stories of maybe somebody you don't know. Because we'd love for everybody to hear some other special people in town stories. And if there's somebody that you want to hear on the show that you think has a lot of value that brings to our community, let me know, because I'd be happy to have them on. So make sure, no matter where you're listening, whether it's Apple, whether it's Spotify, or on YouTube watching it, make sure to subscribe, because that way you don't have to watch my stupid social media, and it'll just pop up on your phone and let you know a new guest is there. So make sure to subscribe, and everybody, we're challenged everybody to go out, do one random act of kindness today.
I love that.
To somebody, right?
That's perfect, yeah.
Just the little things.
One thing.
That's all you got to do.
We always get more back.
Right.
Always.
And you'll be surprised. Start trying it and see what happens.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So, all right, Grays Lake, thank you so very much, and we'll see you next Tuesday.